Welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing Songs of Eden and mine's new song, Life is an Adventure, which is based on this oracle card from the Inner Child and Beyond oracle deck that I have been using as my inspiration for the 10 songs that we have been releasing in these 10 weeks. So we have a few more to go here, but this one is a really cool one because it's not a topic that I had written music about before. So it required a little bit of extra consideration for me, and I'll get into that. And I'll also talk about the lyrics that I chose for the song and to gain that clarity of perspective that we are explorers on this journey of life. So here we go. So the song that I'm going to be playing at the end of the episode is the one that we released today. It's called Life is an Adventure. It's based on this card, which you're seeing backwards, but it's number 9 and it's called The Quest. And as you can see, if you're watching the video of this on YouTube, otherwise I'll describe it, there is a little boy sitting on a deer that's facing away from us. And he's going through this kind of magical looking forest that has these beautiful little flower garlands kind of falling off the trees and going into the sunshine. And I know from listening to Edie talk about her drawing process, EdieArt created the visuals for this deck, that she often starts with an orb or sun type thing and then kind of designs around it. So I love that he's going towards the sunlight because that's ultimately how I imagine our ultimate quests, right, is to be able to gain a clarity and perspective that what we are going towards is always, can always be illuminated in a way. I have this parallel actually that I just thought of. So I have a song called Amen that was released as Sirgan Core, and I wrote that as a version of the Lord's Prayer. So I was taking a prayer class at this spiritual center in Los Angeles called Agape with the Reverend Greta, and she gave us all an Aramaic, or rather an English translation, but of the Lord's Prayer that was directly translated from the Aramaic, which sounded a lot different from the traditional one that people do in church. Later found out that the Lord's Prayer is the only prayer that Jesus ever gave, which is pretty cool. And in it, I say, one of the lines that I wrote is, may we always remember our purpose, illuminate the wisdom in every moment. And I have gone through so many layers of understanding what that means, because I believe that when we write songs, we channel, we are tapping into something. No matter what the topic of the song, you're tapping into something that is available in the collective consciousness. And so that was available to me, but the depth of understanding that just sort of keeps deepening for me in my life. And what I understand now, illuminating the wisdom to be of the moment, is really understanding what any given situation is telling me about what I believe. This is something that I talked a little bit about in the, or a lot about, it got really into this topic of quantum physics in the episode where I talked about My Life is Gold, which was based on the alchemy card. And what's really cool about this idea is that to illuminate that wisdom, right, to realize that all that you do can be, bathed in this sunlight, is to gain a perspective that is closer to how your source or how your soul sees it. Because when your soul, when our inner self, when our greater part of ourself, however we call it, I like to say soul, when our soul sees what is going on in our life, it doesn't see through the limited lens that we see it through. It sees a much broader and higher perspective. And so when in any given moment we can say, oh, that's bad, that's wrong, this is why I can't do XYZ. Your soul doesn't see that. Your soul sees, wow, what an amazing growth, opportunity, what expansion took place in this amazing moment. And then maybe you don't catch up to it. Maybe you don't realize that wisdom until, a few weeks, few years, maybe not until you die, for a lot of people. But if you are actively doing that work and you're actively reflecting on this concept that life is constantly reflecting back to you what you believe, which is what quantum physics tells us, and that is not good or bad. So this is something that took me a really long time to get, and it has to do with this, this quest that we're on. Is we come to conclusions about things that are false. We go, oh, I lost my job and that was bad. No, it wasn't. It is the reason that something else could happen, or it is the way that something else could happen. It is the only way to get you, it was the only way to get you from where you were to where you actually wanted to be. But if your perspective stays really limited and you continue to hate the fact that you lost your job, for example, in this example, you will be limited in the types of perceptions that you will have access to. So you will not have access to that wisdom, because you are so caught up in the resentment of that occurrence. So I think this is something that I was definitely thinking about when I wrote the lyrics to the song, Life is an Adventure, I Love an Adventure. And, I wrote, there were so many iterations of this song too, which is interesting because, like I said, it wasn't something that I had ever really written a song about. And I want to share actually some of Nina's words on this. So when you buy the deck, you get like a little booklet, which is really cool because they're very well curated paragraphs and allow for a lot of self-reflection and maybe questions that you hadn't thought to ask yourself about any specific thing, about the specific thing that you're thinking about. So 9, the quest. Life requires courage from the moment we take our first breath until we release our last. To be alive is to be vulnerable and experience times of trial. Courage exists in the smallest moments. And she goes on to give examples. And then in this inner child part, which I love, so there's 3 sections to every card description. There's an invitation, an inner child portion, and a journey, where she basically gives you like a practice to do, which the practice is very similar to a practice that I do on disproving limiting beliefs. But you basically transform the way that you think about something to look at it in a more empowering light, which is alchemy. So, but the inner child portion, she writes, as a child, did you ever feel that you were a brave adventurer on a quest? Because you are. What were you seeking on the quest of becoming who you are today? Reflect on the fortitude and resilience it took to become who you are in this moment. Look at your younger self and say, I honor your courage. You did your best, and that is more than enough for me. So this one is so sweet. And if you believe, as I do, that we come here knowing that we are one with all that is, but we make an agreement to come here and know that we're going to forget. We're not going to know that we're one with everything. We're not going to understand that we are source itself, that we are, the universe experiencing itself in physical form. We're not going to know any of this. We're going to feel weak and vulnerable because that illusion of separation, of not being one, of being a vulnerable little child, especially when you are, a little baby, who is at the mercy, it would seem, of their circumstances. It's a very courageous act to come here So, congratulate yourself. You are an amazing explorer. I had this really beautiful dream the other day. I was reading this book called The Spell of Rosette. That's like a fantasy novel that takes quantum physics and witchcraft and astrology and fantasy and parallel dimensions and stuff. Oh, it's so fantastic. It's the first in a trilogy, so I ordered the second two books. But I heard from the woman who recommended it to me, Jeanette Ma, the Good Vibe Coach, that the author had woven a spell into the book. So anybody reading the book gets this download. And for her, it was like a dream where she saw herself in every possible role that a human could play. Like she was a mother and a murderer and there's so many other roles, but they're not coming to me. A mother murderer. She was the saint, and she was the evil person. She was the jealous one, and she was the lustful one, and she was the virtuous one. So she saw herself playing all these roles throughout all her lifetimes, right? And she woke up just thinking like, wow, what a ride. What a great ride this human experience is. And so mine was a little bit different. I basically had this like really, I guess you would call it a lucid dream, because I was like aware that I was dreaming, but I was just laying in bed in the morning and it felt like a dream, but I was aware of myself. And it just became so clear to me, and I can't even remember it enough to tell you what I was seeing, but the feeling of it was like, oh, and that was an amazing exploration, and that was an amazing exploration, and that was an amazing exploration. All these things that had happened to me in my life that I didn't like at the time, or I felt resentful about at the time, they all just clearly came to me as these just like enriching experiences, right? I mean, when we think about it, like when we think about this, really, truly realistically, when we're honest with ourselves, we wouldn't want to come here and have nothing happen to us, like have just lay in a silk sheet bed and like read a book for the rest of our life. I mean, we want some experiences, and yes, they cause pain, but that's all they do. They cause emotional pain, and we can deal with emotional pain if you understand what emotional pain is. When emotional pain is when you are feeling something in a way that is diametrically opposed, as if it's intense or just a little bit off from how your soul would see it. That's all. I used to teach this workshop called Reclaim Your Happiness, and that's I went around and that's what I told people. It's like, this is what your emotions are telling you. They're not telling you that something's wrong. They're telling you that you're not seeing it clearly. And that's really hard to swallow for a lot of people because you haven't played with it enough. But really, when you start playing with that, you will see, and quantum physics confirms this, that when you are experiencing resistance to a situation, you're just not seeing it clearly because you set it up. You are the realizer, you are the interpreter, you are the creator of that situation. It could not be otherwise, because we are experiencing the reflection of our own belief system all the time, no exception. That is quantum physics. I love it. As I used to understand this from a purely spiritual standpoint, but now I understand it as, I don't know, I guess something that we have like come to validate more, which is science, when in reality, it's not more valid. It's just the way that we're thinking about things. It's the way that we're thinking about our reality. What somebody, what the cashier says to you and what the scientist says to you, there's something in it. There's something in there, both of those things for you. And the reason is because you created both of those situations. You are that is your image of reality. So there is something for you to understand in both of those things. There's not one that is better than the other. But in your reality, you could decide that one is more valid than the other, and then you will see, you will need to see more examples of that. So you will be shown when This is the thing that quantum physics hasn't quite arrived at, because it's not meshing the spiritual in with it. But it's not just that your belief system creates your reality. It's that it offers you a way to see your belief system. And so therefore, in order to change your physical reality, you need to look at your beliefs and soften them. Because if you have a really malleable and soft system of beliefs, the range of experiences that you will have access to will be so much greater. You will lead such a more exciting life, and the things that will happen to you will be things that have never happened to anyone else, because that's why you're here. You are, again, you're on this quest, you're an explorer, you're here because it's an adventure, it's a fun adventure. And adventurers want opportunities to shift the way that they see themselves, right? At the beginning of the fairy tale, the hero sees himself, or the heroine sees herself differently than he or she does at the end of the fairy tale. At the end of the fairy tale, they have slain the dragon, they have beat the evil stepmother, they have done something that allows them to see themselves in a new light. And that's the joy of being on the quest. That's the joy of living this adventure. So I love the opportunity to write music for this song, because I wanted to remind people that we're here to experience an adventure. We're here to enjoy the ride. When we're resenting it and regretting it and dwelling on the past and decisions we think we shouldn't have made, or whatever, all the things that led us to where we are, that, you know, without which we could not be where we are, that we're not enjoying the ride. And when we can enjoy the ride, or, you know, has maybe as other meditators, you know, or spiritual people would say, like, when we're enjoying the present moment, you know, when we're really in the present moment, we are experiencing that quest, that adventure fully. And that's the magic. That's the magic of being alive, I think. That's why so many people are telling us to practice gratitude and appreciation, because it helps us stay in this moment, in this present moment, which is the only one that we ever have. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. If you have any comments for me, you can put them down below if you're on YouTube. If you are on the other podcast streaming services, please leave a review so that people can know more about this podcast. And I will play Life is an Adventure. All right, here we go. Bye.
We sail on an ocean, we float on a stream. Life is an adventure, powered by dreams. I am brave and open-hearted. I trust the waters, I trust my sails. I am brave and open-hearted. I trust the waters, I trust myself. Life is an adventure. I love an adventure. Life is an adventure. I love an adventure. I am brave and open-hearted. I trust the waters, I trust my sails. I am brave and open-hearted. I trust the waters, I trust myself. I know you know what I mean. Life is an adventure. I love an adventure.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.